Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Well, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome back here to Apex Racing TV, and welcome back to the 2024 Radical Americas Championship. My name is Ron Mullins. Alongside me here in the commentary booth tonight is Matthew Duffin, and in the virtual production hallway we have our old buddy Josh Wilkie. Tonight we head to Watkins Glen, one of the finest circuits in North America, where tonight we've got some pretty good racing in store. Now, Matthew, you are somewhat new to these Radicals, whereby I think this is the first broadcast you've ever done of them, but you're certainly not new here to Watkins Glen, as some of the viewers watching this stream here on Apex Racing Racing TV tonight may have seen you on the Racing Unleashed broadcast earlier today, which was at the Glen. This is a fantastic track, but I may be just a little bit biased being the American here. So Matthew, what do you think of this track here at Watkins Glen?
Good evening, welcome. Thank you for having me here, Ron. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. First of all, I absolutely adore this circuit. I think it's one of America's finest circuits that they have on offer. And they have plenty of great racetracks out in the United States, but Watkins Glen, one of my personal favourites. Love the circuit. Very challenging, very unique. It's got a lot of opportunities for overtaking, but also a lot of opportunities is, if you did see that Racing Unleashed stream earlier, as Ron mentioned, a lot of opportunities for drivers to make mistakes on their own. Very excited to be here. Like you say, new to radicals, eager to learn, eager to see what these drivers can do, and yeah, very excited to be back at the Watkins Glen.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Radicals are definitely not a new quantity here on Apex Racing TV. Those who have tuned into some of the Friday official broadcasts, ones that I were a part of for about a year, I can tell you that these cars put on some fantastic racing regardless of what track it is. These cars have some pretty strong slipstream, which has been toned down a little bit thanks to some gearing trickery here coming into this new season with the fixed setups that we have here, even in the league races. So that's one thing that we need to keep in mind here at this track, where slipstreaming may be the name of the game. However, going for a move, entering the interloop there on the back end of the circuit is definitely going to be a bold move. There's some decent overtaking opportunities here, but as Matthew pointed out, there's not a whole lot of slow speed corners here. There's only a few. You can really narrow it down to just turn number 9, which is a pain in the butt from my perspective. Not a whole lot of very heavy braking zones here on this circuit where drivers can slip a wheel down the inside. So Matthew, having the experience of the Racing Unleashed broadcast earlier today, what overtaking opportunities were we seeing those drivers use in that series, and do you think any of them will convert over here to the Radicals?
I think we've got a lot of opportunities tonight, Ron, to see some overtakes similar to what we saw earlier today, down in towards turn 1, the 90. I think that's going to be a great opportunity for overtaking. Like you said, slipstream going to be key down the start straight. Yes, it's kind of been hampered by them gear changes, but I think a good run out the final corner down towards turn 1, you're going to see a lot of momentum and a lot of moves being done down there. Equally up into the inner loop here, where you can see that run up through the S's, down the straight, get a good run and get a good bit of momentum through the loop. Here's another overtaking opportunity on the outer loop, a good chance for drivers to just understeer a little bit wide. Again, more overtakes can happen. You don't really want to see anything at this kind of corner. It's more setting yourself up for down towards this bottom part of the circuit here, down at the heel. This is where you can get up the inside, stick a nose up the inside, force that driver a little bit wide, and again, as you get onto the back straight here of the shoe, I do believe it's called. The boot, apologies, the boot, down in towards the toe or heel, whichever way it is around. I think I've got them the wrong way around. Again, you can make a good move, and up towards turn 9 here, you get it. It's all about the exit on these corners to set yourself up for that next corner to really overtake. As you see there, just a little greedy on the throttle and dropping the rear all on his own.
I can't even recall the amount of times I've spun coming out of turn number 9. I remember doing a practice session in some GTPs quite a few weeks ago, and I spun coming through there on my opening lap. And I'll tell you, it was probably the quickest spin I've ever had. I've spun quite a lot, even in some oval races as well. So turn number 9, I think, is probably the biggest pain in the butt of them all. It's the slowest corner here on this track. It's one that has, I think it's probably negative banking that you have going through their opposite camber, going through turn number 9, and that's going to catch out a lot of drivers here in this race that we have coming up. Speaking of, we have 2 races. Those unfamiliar with the format, we have this 10-minute qualifying session that we're in right now, single car qualifying, so these drivers don't have to worry about the traffic and don't have that slipstream assistance there on their qualifying laps. Then we go into a 15-minute race, and then right after that, a 45-minute long barn burner where strategy will be the name of the game, with pit stops to contend with as well. So we're currently in this qualifying session. Right now, it's Ryan Odo, who was a standout star last time out in Sebring. However, he was not actually the driver that took the checkered flag in either of those races. I don't just mean taking the checkered flag in first. He didn't even finish both races. He was caught out in some pretty unfortunate incident with some rookie drivers farther down the field. So sadly for Ryan Odo, he was a little bit frustrated with how Sebring went a few weeks ago. However, he's still running pretty decently in the championship. I think we'll run through the points and start off in the pro category. It's very very early stages of the season right now, only 2 rounds on the board. This will be round 3 here tonight, but it's still pretty close at the front. Eric Harmon is currently leading the field in the pro category. That's Mark Harris there in P2, Ryland Richard in P3, currently the top 3. Really, that's, you could stretch it to Ryan Odo there in 4th. The top 4, the top 5 separated by barely any air right now, only 4 points separating Eric Harmon and Mark Harris at the top of the standings in that pro category. It is incredibly close there in that class, and it's incredibly close in the AM category as well. Solorzano has a bit of a gap there, 52 points after taking both checkered flags in Sebring a few weeks ago. Then Joel Jacqueline there in second. Andy Vogel there, who we saw with that spin coming through turn number 9, and a nice little bunny hop coming through the inner loop. He's currently P3 in the standings there in the AM category. And I think with the point standings out of the way, we'll touch on this qualifying session. These drivers, you can see them skidding around the track and sliding all over the place, just trying to find the grip where there isn't one. These tires on these radicals take quite a long time to heat up, so I think we're going to see plenty of drivers sliding around even in these races we have coming up.
And it's all about that early momentum. Get them tyres and brakes in the window they need to be. Get them set up. Set that lap at the best at the end. The track's going to ramp up a little bit. We're going to get better conditions as the qualifying session goes on. But for Franco Sanchez, currently in P4, coming into the inner loop, really being aggressive with all 4 parts of the curb there. He looks like he's a man who could be on a mission, really attacking the curbs on the outer loop section of the circuit as it now starts to fall away from you, dropping downhill. Really sort of on a good lap here at the moment for Sanchez. Is just looking at them sectors. He's not a million miles off pole neither, only 0.2 of a second off that pole position, so could really do with a good lap here to slingshot himself up into P1. But yep, great lap so far from Sanchez, and again he's being really aggressive on these corners, making sure that he's smooth but tight and fast as well at the same time.
Franco Sanchez is one of the best drivers that this Radical community has to offer. I've been calling races with him on the officials for quite some time now, and I can tell you that he has put on some fantastic drives. The last official broadcast I did a couple of weeks ago, probably about a month ago at this point, at Laguna Seca, the season opener for Season 2 of 2024 for the Radical Esports Cup. And Sanchez was involved in an incident in the early stages of the race. Then between then and the checkered flag, he cut through the field like a hot knife through butter and finished off quite strongly. So he is going to be a driver that we need to keep our eyes on. Let's see what lap time he just put. Clawed up a little bit of time. I think he may have lost a tiny bit of time there in the final sector. Very tricky section of the course. Currently P5 here in this qualifying session with not a whole lot of time left to go. We're following, heading through turn number 6 there, going down the chute, then entering the boot here. That's Charles Krasik there in P number 6 right now. He's put together a pretty decent qualifying session right now, and so far the field is still quite incredibly close as things stand at the moment. These Radicals, even in the qualifying session, are very tight.
Yeah, very tight indeed at the moment. Just looking at the gap between the top 9 at the moment, just under a second, so very tight so far between all of them. And then again, it's still just as tight then between the next 9 sort of cars within that second of each other. But just outside, as you see there, Charles just losing it out the exit of turn 9, and so easy to do that, so easy to just get the power down out the exit of turn 9 and lose the rear into the wall. And we're going to see, I think, many a driver do that here tonight at Watkins Glen. One of the hardest corner at this circuit, and I know from plenty of experience on other games, other platforms, that turn 9 will catch you out the most tonight.
I think I've probably said this 5 times throughout this broadcast, and I'll say it again because it is a dead horse worth beating. That corner is a real pain in the butt. It's going to catch out plenty of drivers. Already has caught out some drivers so far here in this qualifying session. This is Diego Zuccarelli, one of the series admins, currently P3 here in this qualifying session, was unable to improve there, so that's disappointing there from the Canadian. Currently P3 here in this qualifying session with about a minute left here on the clock. This Max Siegel now sending it, coming through the inner loop there. You can see him clobber those curbs there, especially that inside curb in the opening parts, getting very flirtatious, outrageously flirtatious there with that inside Armco barrier. The barriers, basically, there's no forgiving there. You just have to be millimeter perfect going through this entire circuit, especially the inner loop. I saw earlier in the week when drivers were preparing for not only the official Radical race at Watkins Glen, but also this race when drivers were trying to find as close as they could get there to that that inside Armco barrier as they went through the inner loop, and I saw plenty of drivers bang their way in there and absolutely ruin their Radical SR10. So that may be a factor here in this race, maybe a factor here in this qualifying session as Max Siegel goes incredibly wide coming through the heel of turn number 8. He is not going to improve there, and in fact the qualifying session is officially over here. And man, I think we're in store for a pretty good race. We're in store for a pretty good race here, Matthew. I was talking with my colleague Charles Bichelle last time at Sebring, and basically said how when in terms of the Radical community, that broadcast was a trial by firing squad, and I think you'll see that here today. It's Lucas Vieira starting this race from the pole, Ryan Odo in P2, Diego Zuccarelli in 3rd, Eric Harmon in 4th, Mark Harris in 5th, Franco Sanchez in P6, Ryland Richard in 7th, Charles Krasik the top of the drivers. He'll be starting this race in 8th. That's Max Siegel in 9th. John Benlid there in P number 10. And then starting in P11 is David Unger, a newcomer here to the series. Then is Denarine in P number 12. And we'll look through the rest of the field here. Timothy Salvatore, Vocal, Hindi, Reeve, Howard, Jacqueline, O'Hayron, I probably butchered that pronunciation. I apologize there. Cedric, who's starting in P19, then Brendan Wright rounding out your top 20. Then we have Abantes, McDougall, Pires, and Johnson rounding out your field. Brian Johnson was the epicenter of that drama that we saw at Sebring, so we'll see if the rookie driver can get through this race clean. We'll just have to wait and see what this race has in store. We're just waiting for a few more drivers to line up on the starting grid. I think I'm kind of shocked the fact I got through that 24-car starting grid in the small little bit of time that we have. No rolling starts in the official broadcast, no rolling starts here in the league races either. I think all the drivers are lined up on the grid just waiting for one more straggler here. I'm going to look to see when they get popped onto track, and then we're going to be in store for a pretty good race. Heading into turn number 1, not a whole lot of time for these drivers to get settled there, so I can imagine lap 1 is going to be incredibly tense. I'm sure none of the people watching the stream here on Apex Racing TV are going to be sitting down. If not, they're going to be on the edge of their seats because we have some great racing from the Radical SimRacing America series coming up for you tonight. The lights are out and the drivers are on their way. That's a pretty good start there from your pole setter. He's going to lead them quite comfortably there into turn number 1. We already have a massive crash farther in the back. I think that's 3 or 4 cars spinning like a top, bodywork flying all over the place, and that's a disastrous start for the drivers running farther behind. I believe Brian Johnson was involved in that. Richard McDougall involved as well. A lot of drivers already coming to blows. It was Denarine, Wright, O'Brien, and Brantes, I believe, that were involved in that Shamalto through the start-finish straight away. That was a disastrous start for them. But besides them, they're getting through turn 1. The first few corners of this lap clean so far, going through the inner loop on the first time. Will anyone get caught out by the killer curbs and the little margin for error here? I saw a big puff of smoke as they went through the corner. However, I think whoever had that big puff of smoke got away with it. So far so clean, which is a little bit shocking considering how much drama we were expecting here at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, it is. It's a great start from the leaders. Everybody got away well, especially the guy in P1. It was a fantastic start for Lucas Vieira there. Really got away well. It was chaos at the background, though, off the line. We'd not even made it down past the start line for the stragglers in the background to really sort of get involved. And I think there was differences in the launches off the line. We saw cars have to avoid other cars that maybe didn't get as good a start, and that became a bit of a problem. But here you see down at Watkins Glen on the opening lap of this 15-minute sprint race, it is already a good start for that leader. Lucas Vieira has got a good gap. He's got a 1.5 second buffer at the moment out front as they come through that tricky turn 9 in towards the penultimate corner now, and it has really been a great battle. There's a fight for second and third at the moment, and you see that Diego Zuccarelli, then the Canadian, versus Eric Harmon, the American, really going tooth and nail down across the start line to end the first lap. What an opening lap it's been, though, for Vieira out front. The Brazilian doing great stuff on the opening lap.
When it comes to these 15-minute long heat races here with the Radical Leagues, what tends to happen is we see frayed nerves and a lot of drivers absolutely going for it. However, cooler heads are prevailing with Vieira pulling away. About a 2-second gap he has now between himself and Eric Harmon, who just got moved on Diego Zuccarelli as they went through the S's this time by. However, the fight is still not over as Zuccarelli trying to find a way to get past, and there's Odo slipping through. Actually, no, that's Sanchez that was just slipping through to move into P2. That was a fantastic run for the driver from Peru, who came out of nowhere going down that back straightaway. Even though the slipstream has been toned down a little bit here in these Radicals, it is still incredibly strong, and Franco Sanchez uses that to beautiful effect here, going down the back straightaway to begin lap 2.
And it's really the slingshot, the double slipstream from the two cars in front of him. Sanchez manages to get through there, and there was Ryan Odo to try and follow through. He managed to get past one of the cars, and you see all the drivers being very aggressive over them curves on the inner loop. Very easy to unsettle these cars, as we've seen coming through turn 9, but they are all full of confidence. And look at this little battle now. This is fantastic to watch. Sanchez from Harman, Odo, Zuccarelli just dropping back a little bit, trying to stay on this pack, and then just behind him you've got Harris, who wants to get involved, and that's a move up the inside by Ryan Odo on that of Harman, up through that treacherous turn 9, and it is a great manoeuvre from him as they head towards the penultimate corner now. Still side by side, the move isn't complete. Round the outside comes Harman again. He'll have the inside for the next part. He's already got the move done. It's a fantastic bit of racing this for that final podium spot. And what this sprint race brings here, Ron, is it brings excitement. It brings no holds barred. It is get to the front as quick as you can, because you don't have a lot of time to do so.
None of these drivers are taking prisoners, and we saw that with Ryan Odo's failed attempt at an overtake there on Eric Harman as they went into turn number 9. However, as they're going through the S's, going up the hill, and they're about to go onto that back straightaway, I think we're going to see this 170-mile-an-hour game of leapfrog continue here. Zuccarelli on the outside trying to find a way to get past Odo. Now Odo's trying to find a way to get past Harman. They're going to be side by side going into the inner loop here. You can see him nearly go off the track, and that's making contact there is Zuccarelli and Sanchez. Sanchez having to go off the track there with, I believe that was Siegel following through there. So all those drivers trying to pull off a move on each other. It broke up that battle a little bit. Those 4 cars you can cover them with a blanket. Before they went into the inner loop, even last lap they were covered by barely any air. Now you can see it's actually stretched out a little bit. However, the pack is still massive. Sanchez actually pulling away a little bit from Harman. He is breaking away from the chaos that happened right behind him. He wants no parts of the madness right behind him. So Franco Sanchez, a Peruvian driver, beginning to pull away from Harman in P3, Odo in P4, and I gotta imagine the fight between Harman and Odo is going to be hard fought between now and the checkered flag. Harman, I mean, he's the current points leader here, so he has a little bit to lose. Oh, and speaking of, he loses it coming out of turn number 9, spins it, drops it on the curb, and he'll be very careful. Who was that he nearly got T-boned by? I believe that might have been Salvatore Krasik. Ooh, be very careful here on the rejoin. He gets away with it clean, but Eric Harman, who is running a fantastic podium position, spins out of that spot. That is a disastrous run and a disastrous turn of events for your championship leader entering this round.
And that's what the sprint race can do to you. It can make you flustered. It can make you under pressure. You put yourself under pressure. You had a bit of time there to maybe just take it a little bit easy. Get through turn 9. Get yourself into a rhythm. One thing we've seen, though, is Sanchez has left that pack since he's got through them. He's 3.1 off the back of Vieira. Doesn't have that pace at the moment. Was a couple of tenths slower on the last lap. Here we have Diego Zuccarelli going to the outside of Siegel in towards the inner loop. I believe that's Harris just in the background watching on as well, and it's a great move from the Canadian who moves himself back up into P5. So like you say, there's a lot of cars that you can cover with a blanket here, but for Harman there, he really made the mistake. He didn't need to make it, just got a little eager on the throttle, probably put himself under more pressure than the cars behind him did. But it's a great start to this race. 6 minutes gone already, nearly enough halfway through. Here's the replay of Harman himself, and as you can see here on look, he's not really under pressure behind, he's not really attacking the car in front, just a little too impatient on the throttle, drops that wheel on the grass, and around it goes. Did well not to get collected.
These radicals are so tricky to drive. You pretty much have to treat the throttle and the brake pedal as if you have an egg right underneath that throttle willing to crack at any sort of adverse pressure. We've seen that in the officials, and we've seen that from this league as well, and the current points leader gets bit out by it going through turn number 9. You can't really say that he got hit by a falling anvil. Really, he ran into that falling anvil himself, though, so that was unfortunate. And I think we're going to take a look at some more replays of the drama that's happened so far in this race. This was a massive crash that kicked things off here. We're following Brendan right there, who started right towards the tail end of the field, got a disastrous start there. You can see him swirling around, ran into that barrier there on the outside. Once again, the wheel spinning in these radicals is something that you really have to keep in mind on those standing starts, and there's another view. This is Ohayon here, Cedric Ohayon in the number 44 car, and I think, oh yeah, he just had nowhere to go. Spins across the track in an attempt to avoid that spinning car in front of him, and sadly it ends in tears for quite a lot of those drivers. That was just so unfortunate, and you can't really pin the blame on anyone.
No, you can't pin the blame on anyone. Just two bad starts from two drivers. Just getting a little too eager again on that throttle pedal. Like you say, treat it like there's an egg underneath it, especially on the race start off the line. Traction's so important, and just a lack of traction there. They got the rear wheels to spin up and into the fellow oncoming traffic. It was for them. Here is Richard then, P10 at the moment, the American driver, currently fending off that of Hunter Reeves so far. He's doing a great job of staying in front and inside that top 10. He's down 3 positions on his grid start, so not the best of races, but he's going to look to try and come back in this one. We're at the 8-minute mark of 15 minutes in this race, and it's Vieira from Sanchez who really, that gap's still at 4.5 seconds. Vieira is in control of this race out front at the moment. Here he is out front. He's just he's in a world of his own at the moment.
One thing that we need to keep in mind here with Vieira is he's slowly going to catch up to lap traffic. We usually don't see that here in these sprint races. However, with the drama we had at the very start, we are seeing that play a role. I believe that may be Dennerine right in front of him that he's going to catch up here in the not too distant future. Hopefully for Vieira's sakes, he catches him up down that back straightaway and it doesn't slow him up too badly here. The 244 car driven by the Canadian of Dennerine, he is going to be getting those blue flags, getting those blue flag warnings, which he doesn't have to necessarily abide to. He doesn't really have an obligation. However, he may play sportsman. He's letting off the gas and he's going to let Vieira by going into the inner loop. Good sportsmanship there here in the Radical Sim Racing America's Championship. Lucas Vieira still holding on to that lead right now, and we'll see if that increases between now and the checkered flag. But you put right there, Matthew, he is in command of this race. Right now, Hunter Reeve is in command of this fight between himself and Ryland Richard. They went side by side going down the back straightaway. They single filed out going into the inner loop here, but there's a nice little fight just outside the top 10.
Yeah, and Hunter Reeves actually just got past Richard then for 10th place. He was behind him a lap ago, so he's got that move finished and has managed to get past him. So a good move from Hunter Reeves then to move himself inside that top 10. But you're looking at the timing screens at the moment, and it is so close between some of these drivers. Zuccarelli trying to get on the back as well of P4. He's on a bit of a mission as well to try and come back through. Max Siegel and David Unger, they're also trying to get inside that top 6, top 5, as they're all having a great scrap. Here is P4 at the moment with Zuccarelli just behind him in 5th place coming into that turn 9. As we can see a replay right now, this is for P7. This is Timothy Salvatore here. Great run up the S's. You see that slipstream take full effect in these radicals. The momentum through the S's just flicks it to the inside, and this move's going to be done before he even gets into the braking zone, and through he goes. Fantastic manoeuvre. And what's great to see about these cars run around here is they are really aggressive on these curves. They are not holding back with anything.
All of these drivers definitely had their practice laps in. They know exactly what to take. From my experience driving here at Watkins Glen, I can tell you that going into the inner loop with a certain amount of speed, you don't want to be on two wheels. One driver that's going to be in the wall there is Max Siegel. He made a little bit of contact. I believe that was with Unger that he may have made contact with coming through turn number 1. We're going to have to take a look at a replay to see what in the world happened there to the driver of the 175 car, who's running solidly inside the top 10 and was putting together a fantastic race. Sadly for him, it goes it goes south very quickly there for Max Siegel. We're going to take a look at a replay here of what happened heading through turn number 1. I think he tried to go for the switchback here and just made a little bit of contact. We saw that in the last ever IndyCar race here back in 2016 when Graham Rahal just clipped the inside of a driver that he was racing and took a one-way trip to that inside tire barrier. And sadly for Max Siegel, it ends in very similar fashion even in the sim.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it was a lovely run. You could see exactly what he was trying to do. He set it up absolutely perfectly, braked a little earlier than the car in front. The problem was the momentum, the speed he took through the corner just meant he clipped the other car. The other car in front, not too sure on who it was at the time, did very well to hang on to that, but this is currently a position of Jacqueline down in 13th place, right on the back then of Krasik here, and it's going to make a great move down towards the heel on that straight of the boot, and it's up the inside. Good job done for him, and it's another move up into P12, but Jacqueline's now got to do some defending as Krasik's going to come back around the outside of P9, brakes a little earlier and can't get that move finished here, but it's a good run out of turn 9 at the moment. We're not seeing many cars lose it through turn 9 on their own, so good start for these drivers in this race. We're coming into the final 3 minutes of the race now. Zuccarelli's moved up to P4, so he's got another pass done, but it is Vieira from Sanchez and Odo still the top 3 in this race.
And Odo right now is actually the fastest of the drivers currently running in the podium positions. However, I think it may be too little too late. However, he's a driver that we'll have to keep our eyes on for the feature race we have coming up later on this evening. Right now, I'm keeping my eyes on this fight between the two Canadians of Benlead and Zuccarelli here, currently running P4 and P5. And I think maybe we'll see John Benlead go for a move in the not-too-distant future. Zuccarelli has been a very fast driver. However, we saw Benlead reel him on the back straightaway. That slipstream, again, so powerful here in these Radical SR10s. You'll be shocked that these are one of the most slipstreamy cars in the game because they punch a massive hole in the air. That's Max Siegel, who actually didn't tow back to the pits. He drove it all the way around, and he is finally coming down pit road there. That's Brian Johnson, who's in the pits as well, was involved in that lap 1 Shamazel. So 2 cars taken out of this race. I am honestly shocked that we haven't seen more attrition out of this 15-minute sprint race. We still have about a lap to go, so anything can happen between now and the checkered flag. But the fact we've seen only 2 drivers get binned by the silver bullets is truly unbelievable. What do you think, Matthew?
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic, especially when you look at the start of the race. We've only lost our 2 drivers. So far, so good. Zuccarelli coming under some pressure once again. Here is Lucas Vieira, who's really just dominated this race. He's kept the gap at about 4.5 seconds. Fastest lap of the race that he did earlier on as well. He's just under 39.7. Pulls a bit more over Franco Sanchez. He's done well to come through the pack. But it's Odo here, who in this last lap, maybe there'll be one more to go just after this. He's really starting to put some pressure on the back of Sanchez at the moment, just within that second mark. And if he could just get that little bit closer, he's going to feel the effects of the slipstream through the S's and down on this straight towards the inner loop. He's going to feel that slipstream. You can see Sanchez there just trying to break that slipstream a little bit without being weaving too much with Odo not close enough to the back of him. But you see the run he gets through the inner loop is absolutely fantastic. Now down through the outer loop as you're going to drop downhill, dropping 2 wheels on the curb nearly onto the grass. Very brave stuff there from Odo, using all the runoff necessary. Very wide curbs on the exit curbs here at Watkins Glen, so you can use a lot of it. And now as you come down through the chute in towards toe, Odo really putting himself in a position down the boot to get a good run into heel.
Right now, I think you could probably hear the Jaws theme playing if you're Sanchez. At this point, he is going to be a sitting duck in the not-too-distant future. However, I think it's going to be borderline about whether or not this is a white flag lap or whether we have 1 to go. It's going to be a matter of seconds to see whether Vieira is going to take that white flag or take the checkered flag. He has some lap traffic. I believe that's Siegel that he just dispatched. They're exiting turn number 9. I'm taking a look. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 second left to go, and this is a checkered flag, so it's going to be Vieira taking pretty much a lights of flag victory in dominant fashion here at Watkins Glen. And then right behind it's going to be close between Sanchez and Odo. Sanchez is going to be thanking his lucky stars the fact that was a checkered flag, because I think if there's one more lap there, Ryan Odo would have been a surefire lock for that P2 position. Zuccarelli finishes in 4th, Benlead in 5th, and we're just waiting for some more of the drivers. Now all the top 10 have taken the checkered flag, and that was borderline there for them actually taking the white and taking the checkered. And as I said, I think Sanchez is he may have to buy, I'm not sure if Peru has a lottery, however he'd probably have to buy lottery tickets, because he is feeling incredibly lucky the fact there wasn't more laps left in that race, because I think if there was, he would have been done for.
I think if you'd have seen 1 extra lap in that race, Odo up through the S's would have probably been able to get that move completed on Sanchez there, and that would have been a different story for the podium. But it's a great race from Vieira. You can't really take anything away from Vieira there. He drove a fantastic race, dominant victory for him there. But a great drive from Sanchez as well. Let's not forget he had to come through a few cars, as did Odo. Had to pass and get through a bit of traffic to make sure that he was able to be on the podium. So they put themselves in a great position. And as well, when you look at them championship standings, Vieira, 21 points, that catapults him up that championship list already. Sanchez was P6, he's going to climb up, and Ryan Odo, with other drivers down that list a bit, he was tied 3rd on 34 points. He's going to be leading the championship after this race, so a great start tonight for Ryan Odo, and the pace he's got in that car with Vieira and Sanchez, the feature race is going to be fantastic.
Now, that was a great start for plenty of those drivers. We're still waiting for McDougall to actually take the checkered flag. He's the only driver not to do so far here in this race. I believe he may have towed back to the pit, so I think that'll do it here. Actually, no, there you go. Just crossing the start-finish line now to end off that race. All the cars have taken the checkered flag, and we're going to take a look at the results now between now and this race. We have a small little warm-up session to actually take a quick little break here and decompress ourselves after that action-packed 15-minute race. We'll touch on the results here to cap off that very dramatic sprint race here at Watkins Glen. It was Lucas Vieira taking the checkered flag, about 5 seconds clear of Franco Sanchez in second, and Ryan Odo knocking on the Peruvian's door there will round out your podium in third. That's Diego Zuccarelli in fourth, John Benlead in fifth, Mark Harris, Timothy Salvador, David Unger, Hunter Reeve, and Rylan Richard will round out your top 10. Chris Heide in 11th, Joel Jacklin in P number 12. Shout out to Hunter Reeve. I didn't even mention the fact that he won the AM category. A nice result there from the American driver. That's Joe Jacklin finishing this race in P12. Charles Krasik in 13th, Matthew Howard in 14th, Eric Harmon in 15th. A very upsetting result there for the driver that entered this race and this round as a championship leader. He will be looking to have some sort of redemption here in this race we have coming up. Andy Vogel finishes in 16th. Luis Pires, I apologize, in P number 17. Dennis Oyan involved in that small little first lap. Shamazel finishes in P18. That's Abrantes, Wright, McDougall, Siegel, Dennerine, and Johnson rounding at your field. Many drivers caught up in Shamazel throughout this race. And Matthew, you mentioned how for some of these drivers, especially the drivers on the podium, that was a great start for them. I have to say, I think that was a great start for you, because I think that was a fantastic first race for the Radicals for you to call. What do you think?
Yeah, great race to open the Radicals campaign for myself. Brilliant sort of learning curve. It was great to see. You got a bit of everything there. You got the start line incidents with the lack of traction away. Again, obviously new to Radicals, that was something to learn. You've got to see the characteristics of the cars and the slipstream really playing to effect there. But I do feel that it was a great opening race of the evening. The feature race is going to be absolutely fantastic. Obviously, we've got that pit stop to come as well with the fuel to be added. So it's going to bring a fantastic race. It's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to this feature race already.
With this race as well, we don't have any reversing or anything like that. I know our colleagues on the European Championship broadcast earlier today may have said that there's some reversing in this field. That is not the case. The order that we had for that sprint race is going to be the one that's going to be the starting grid for the feature we have coming up in a few moments' time. And I think comparing the two races we're going to see between that 15-minute sprint race and the 45-minute feature we have coming up in just a few moments' time is comparing apples to oranges. I think it's going to be a bit less heavily paced, so to speak. I think we're going to see some of these drivers taking it easy, but we're still going to see some really compelling stuff. Matthew, what are you looking forward to heading into the second race of the evening?
I am indeed. I'm really looking forward to this one. It's going to be fantastic. And like you say, I don't think you're going to get the outright speed from these drivers from the get-go. It's going to be about managing your tyres, work on that strategy of when to pit, when not to pit. Also, you've got that 25 minutes, 30 minutes longer than what you had in race one. So you've really now got to work on your overtakes. If you can do what Vieira did in race one, get a bit of a gap out front, that's not going to be a bad thing. Strategy with timing the pit stops is going to be key, as well as keeping it clean, keeping out of trouble, and making sure that you pick off them places nice and easy. They've got a bit more time in race two to take their time on these overtakes and look to get them done a bit longer.
I think, speaking of having a little bit of time, we have a small little bit of time between now and the end of this warm-up session. So I think I would just like to thank the Radical community and a lot of the people tuning into the stream here on Apex Racing TV. We see some viewers contributing to the other YouTube chat, talking about this race and talking about the stuff they're seeing on stream, and I really appreciate it. On top of that, I mentioned the other Radical community being a fantastic one. I'll tell you something, a little bit of a personal note. After the final official Radical broadcast I did a few weeks ago, I announced in the other Radical Discord server that I was ending my time and going into radical retirement, so to speak, on those broadcasts, and the other outpouring of support from many of the drivers that we see in both the European Championship as well as this America's one. It was very heartwarming to see. But enough of that sappy crap. Let's talk about this race and what a fantastic feature race we have in store in just a few moments' time. A lot to look forward to, Matthew. What do you think is going to be the main thing that may catch these drivers out?
I think the main thing, again, is first of all, get yourself off the line. Make sure the drivers that have the problems in race one, they need to get off the line in race two a lot better than what they did the first time round. I think the second one is going to be the pace is going to be a lot slower. Drivers who was at the front trying to fight for top threes, top four, top five places, excuse me. Zuccarelli, one that springs to mind, who got 4th place in that race. The pace may suit him a little more. Didn't have the pace of the front 3, but if his pace matches them in that race too, with it being a bit slower, you may see these drivers come to that front. Yes, Vieira did well to win by such a margin, but now he's got to tone that pace back a bit, unless he can keep it there for 45 minutes. If he can, I think you're going to see an outright winner. I don't think the pace is going to be as frantic as it was in race 1.
We'll just have to wait and see if the pace is a little bit slower. We may have to start talking in slow motion, but enough of that very bad joke there. I apologize for that. Let's touch on the starting grid. It's Lucas Vieira starting this race like he did in the sprint from the pole. Franco Sanchez there in 2nd, Ryan Odo in 3rd, Diego Zuccarelli in 4th, John Benlid in P5. That's Mark Harris, Timothy Salvatore, David Unger, Hunter Reeves starting at the top of the AM drivers, and then Rylan Richard rounding at your top 10. That's Chris Heide, Joel Jacklin rounding at your top 12, and we'll scroll through the rest of the field. Krasik, Howard, Harmon, Vocal, Pires, O'Hine, I probably killed that pronunciation again, Brantes in P19, Wright in P20, McDougall, Siegel, Denleen, and Johnson rounding at your field. And I'm going to keep my eye on Harmon starting this race in P15. He's going to be a man on a mission looking for some kind of redemption after the unfortunate way that sprint race ended. He was in the running for a podium, but it ended in tears. We'll see how things go here in this race. The green flag is out, the lights are on, the drivers are on their way, and once again for Vieira, it is a fantastic start. He's going to clear him and lead him. Heading into turn number 1, we see some drivers going side by side, even 3, maybe even 4 wide, farther in the back. All these drivers finding this to be the best opportunity to try and go for some moves while the field is packed together like sardines. We'll see all these drivers going for some moves, maybe going down this back straightaway for the first time. We're going to see plenty of moves heading into the inner loop. We're riding on board with Ryan Odo, who's now trying to go for a move around the outside. Heading into the inner loop, it's a bold move, it's a ballsy move. Will he be able to make it stick there? And he gets it done beautifully. That was a fantastic move from Ryan Odo to move into P2 around the outside of Franco Sanchez. Heading into the inner loop, the American and the Peruvian putting on a fantastic show here in the early stages of this race, and that's a crash, a massive crash. Exiting the inner loop, I see some bodywork flying. I think I saw, it might have been, I think that might have been the front bumper there from Eric Harmon's car. I'll take a look at the live timing screen to see if he was involved. I think he was. Eric Harmon has towed back to the pits, so the driver that entered this race as a championship leader has had a truly disastrous meeting here at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, and that's not what the championship leader needed. Obviously, early in the championship, maybe so, but you still want good, consistent rounds. You don't win a championship by winning the odd race here or there. You win a championship by being consistent throughout the season. Great move from Odo to open the account, though, into that inner loop section of the circuit. Here is the instant. They all come through the inner loop. Not quite sure who this is down the pack. You just see a couple of cars go 3 wide, and that is it. Like a pack of dominoes, down they all fall as they all just bounce off the barrier. Cars flipping. There's a white car still cartwheeling down to the outside of the outer loop. That is a huge incident for a lot of these drivers, and it is like dominoes. They've stacked them all up. They've all bounced off the wall, and they have all fallen. Watch the cars in front. It's the pink car in front, goes 3 wide, gets a little tap on the rear. That is game over, bounces off the wall, and then it is like a game of pinball. Bouncing off each way and everywhere, and the white radical was cartwheeling down the rest of the circuit. Absolutely crazy. Here's a move, though. I believe this is Zuccarelli on Harris at the moment. Not going to get that move done. Just behind him is Unger and yeah, I believe Unger's just got that move done, so I believe he's just moved up into P8, but Zuccarelli P6 at the moment. Vieira, once again, can we just say, what a start from Vieira. The gap's not as big at the moment. Odo's hot on his heels, but again, he got the start he needed and got away well.
I have a very strong feeling that Lucas Vieira is not going to be as comfortable as he was in that sprint race. He had a massive gap all throughout. It finished quite a long ways ahead of Franco Sanchez, who rounded that race out in P2. I don't think he's going to be nearly as comfortable here in this race. We'll just have to wait and see. This is a field flooding into the pits. All the cars that are damaged in that massive accident as they came out of the bus stop, came out of the inner loop there on the opening lap. That was Siegel, the one that flipped around, that was probably one of the worst most radical accidents I've seen in my nearly year covering radical races here on Apex Racing TV. It's so bad, in fact, I think we may need to hold a moment of silence at the end of this broadcast. That was absolutely disastrous. However, he didn't tow back to the pits. He landed on his wheels and kept going like a badass, even though he spent quite a lot of time in the pits trying to fix that damage. Siegel still, the fact he managed to drive that car, really drag it back to the pits after that massive accident he was involved in, is truly unbelievable. Ryan Odo, running in P2, currently has the fastest lap of the race as they begin lap 3 here, so that will probably change between now and the end of this race. The 45 minutes of racing action that we have ahead of us, about 4 minutes in right now. That's Pyrez now exiting the pits, one of the other cars involved in that accident. And right now, with all the cars involved in accidents, we're going to be seeing lap traffic play a big role here in this race in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I believe we are, and like you say, Odo to do the fastest lap at the moment. That may change only 4 minutes into this 45-minute race. Odo's got good pace so far, and he's putting Vieira under pressure, and look at the gap behind. Sanchez, nowhere in sight at the minute. He's not even on the podium so far, so he's lost out 3rd place somewhere as well over the course of this race. But Odo, at the moment, he's showing fantastic pace. Just goes to show that if he had 1 or 2 more laps, he maybe would have got past Sanchez in race 1. But now he has that time that we spoke about in the break to just take his time and get on the back of Vieira. Doesn't need to make any silly manoeuvres at the moment. He can build that gap, see where Vieira's weak, see where Vieira's strong, and then make the overtake.
We're going to take a look at another replay. This is John Binlid going for a move here farther in the back. This was a move he pulled off to move up another spot just around the outside as he went through turn number 4, going onto the back straightaway. And I think it was just some textbook stuff here from the driver of the number 8 car. Yeah, textbook stuff there, heading into the inner loop there. That is a move that we've seen many a time here in these radicals, whether it be the officials or whether it be these league races. That is the move to pull off when you're racing here at Watkins Glen. But at this stage in the race, I think everything is up in the air. Ryan Odo is still setting much quicker lap times than Vieira, so he is slowly reeling him in. I mentioned the Jaws music towards the end of that sprint race between Odo and Sanchez. I think we're gonna have to bring it back. We can't play it here on Apex Racing TV because of copyright concerns. However, you can imagine it in your head. I'm sure Vieira is imagining it right now, and he is soon going to have to live that as Odo may close in here in the not too distant future. Meanwhile, we've got a fight here between Franco Sanchez and Ben Lid. Franco Sanchez moves by the Canadian to move into P number 3. This is a fantastic fight for the final podium position, and really all these drivers at this stage pushing it to the absolute limit, playing a 170-mile-an-hour game of leapfrog right now. None of them really caring about fuel management, tire management. They're just throwing caution to the wind and putting on some great racing with it.
It is indeed. It's like a game of chess. Who's going to blink first? It's all about that slipstream. And like you say, coming up through the S's, Sanchez got a great slingshot there over Binlid. And fantastic to see that move done into the inner loop. Really was a great move. But again, textbook. He knows what he was doing. He set him up nice and early through the S's. This is it. Game of chess. Who's going to blink first in terms of getting that slipstream up the S's next time around?
This is going to be tense stuff between now and the checkered flag all throughout this field. We're looking at Matthew Howard currently. Well, we were looking at Matthew Howard, who is running in P12, and he is involved in a nice fight there as well, but our attention is split all throughout this field. I feel bad for our producer, Josh, who has to be like a chameleon every time we cover these radical broadcasts, looking at about 7 different things at once, and right now we're seeing Matthew Howard in the midst of this fight between himself, Ohayan, and Reeve there. So all of them covered by barely any air at this stage, running P11, P12, and P13. Howard on that last lap was actually no, it was Ohayan there. That was the fastest of the 3 drivers, and Reeve quite slow last time by. So I think he may have had some kind of mistake, because a 1:43 is not a good lap time here in these Radical SR10s at Watkins Glen. It would be a great lap time if we were running at the Nordschleife, but that's not the case here. We're running at Watkins Glen, and that is not a good lap time. But right now, he has that drift, has that slipstream, and it's gonna be our camera car of this fight as they go through into the inner loop. Matthew Howard pulls off the move to move into P11. Nice stuff going into the inner loop.
Yeah, great stuff there from Matthew Howard. Really good move. And you can see that he's got a bit of a gap already over the 2 cars behind at the moment. And it is a fantastic move to get up into P11. He's going to now try and look down after Krasic, who's a bit away up the road. You can't really see him in front of Howard on the circuit, so he's already through toe at the moment. So not a lot of room for Howard to make improvements so far, but we're only 8 minutes into this 45-minute race. Krasic doing the job of trying to stick on the back of Hiddy and Unger then. So he's trying to make his own moves inside that top 10 a little further, and again, using all of that runoff. This is crucial here. The drivers need to make sure they're using all that bit of track that is available to them. I believe there was a move a bit further forward. Zuccarelli and Salvatore looked like they was having a little scrap, as we saw just in the distance, and they are as well. Harris just in front of this battle, and Zuccarelli, he's been in the thick of a few fights tonight. He's had a real good night of overtaking, defending, and just trying to do what he can. Let's watch him through the S's here. This will be a great camera shot, seeing him through the 90. Again, use that runoff as far as you can go before the game decides to give you that time penalty, that slow down penalty, up through the S's. Use that momentum now, stick in that slipstream. This is the crucial part of this race. Harris in front though, not really helping Zuccarelli by giving that slipstream away as well. And now the two in front decide to pull out. Where does Zuccarelli go? You see him lift off there, had a huge lift. Didn't fancy making that 3 wide as a bunny hop over the first part of the curve. But that is Harris who's made a mistake. And off he goes. Diego Zuccarelli moves up into 6th place.
Let me try and explain to the viewers how powerful the slipstream is here at this track. If you take a driver like Lucas Vieira, who is still leading this race and hasn't had the drift of anyone, his fastest top speed so far in this race is 161 miles an hour. Meanwhile, Zuccarelli, who's been in the drift of pretty much everyone all throughout this race, has a fastest top speed so far of 178 miles an hour. So 17 miles an hour being the difference in that drift. It shows you how much it's kind of like DRS in Formula 1. You can just see these drivers blow their metaphorical doors off going down that back straightaway. The slipstream is so incredibly important here in these radical SR10s, but that is insane. 17 mile an hour difference there between not being in the drift and being in the drift. That is nuts.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. But like you say, you compare it to Formula 1 with the DRS system, it is absolutely huge. As here's Brian Johnson, who's just been overtaken, was a little wide coming in towards the chute, and Richard manages to get up the inside and get past him. 17 miles per hour. That is absolutely crazy. If you look here, look at Odo. He's currently 5 mile an hour quicker than Vieira so far. So absolutely huge momentum, and that gives the driver such a chance to get past at the next part of the circuit. And as you say, Odo at the minute, last time round was 0.2 of a second slower than Lucas Vieira. So this is the stage of the race where it just ebbs and flows. Did Odo give too much at the start? Is he now going to regret that as opposed to Vieira so far? Who knows? We're going to see. The other thing to take into effect of for Odo as well is he's been in that dirty air of Vieira for so long now. That's going to hurt his tyres a little more than Vieira.
That is a great point there, Matthew. These Radical SR10s, they punch a massive hole going down the straightaways, but that same hole that they punch going down the straights to give a 17 mile an hour difference between being in the drift and not being in the drift will also punch a massive hole that'll make you feel like you're driving a truck coming through the corners. But nevertheless, Odo is within striking distance of Vieira, but I think at this point there's a great saying in racing: to catch up is one thing, to pass is another, and I think Ryan Odo is proving that right now, as the gap between himself and Vieira has been roughly the same for quite some time. We may see Odo just try and back off a little bit and maybe save his tires, get a little bit of clean air, because I don't think with these Radical SR10s that going for a move with about a second separating you two, I think it's a bad window whereby you're not close enough to get a powerful slipstream to just slip by someone going down the straightaway. However, you are close enough to feel that dirty air going through the corner. So I think Ryan Odo, some would call the Goldilocks zone if you're in that slipstream with enough air on your front wing. However, Ryan Odo is in the danger zone right now, and I think he's really struggling, was quite slower than Vieira last time by, so I think Odo may start to back off a little bit here in the not too distant future.
Yeah, and you just commented the late great Murray Walker there, where catching one thing, passing is another, and that is exactly it. But he did catch him. He did have that opportunity earlier on. Didn't get the move done. Now that dirty air causing the tyres to just maybe come under a little pressure and under a little bit of strain from the back of Vieira's car. Vieira, just say again, has done a great job. He managed that big gap in race one. He's managing a much smaller gap now, and it is a fantastic race from Vieira, showing great racecraft that he's got at his disposal. And can we just say, the two leaders are 7.8 seconds clear of Sanchez, who's about 0.6 of a second up the road from Benlid in P4. So it's been an absolutely outstanding bit of pace from the front two. I didn't think we'd see this amount of pace early doors, but we're seeing such great pace early on. But Sanchez coming under some pressure from Benlid. That is within a half a second gap. That is for P3. That is the podium spot. There they are. So Benlid been able to drop Zuccarelli, and now he's on the back of the Peruvian of Sanchez, and this could prove to be a tricky bit of racing for Sanchez to hang on to.
And Franco Sanchez is no slouch of a driver. We saw last time out at Sebring, he took the checkered flag, the top of the pro drivers and top overall in both the sprint and the feature race. So Franco Sanchez is a very talented race car driver here in the sim, but just sadly for him, I think what's hurting him the most is the fact he has no slipstream, no air in front of him that's being disturbed. And I think I saw from that graphic when I was taking a look at those drivers' top speeds, Sanchez was only clocking out at about 162 miles an hour, which is painfully slow compared to the drivers living life in the fast lane and living life in the draft. I think that's a main reason why these two have closed up quite a lot. That gap has diminished, and it'll diminish once again here going down the back straightaway. He's not close enough to get a move done. However, Benlid maybe in the not too distant future, maybe next time by, you can see how much that gap decreased as they went down the back straightaway before they chucked it into the inner loop. It just shows you how powerful the slipstream is. We've probably said that 100 times so far in this broadcast, but at a track with not a whole lot of heavy braking zones to deal with, that is the main thing that decides these fights. So John Benlid right now, he is within striking distance. I think when they go into the inner loop next time by, that's when we're going to see these two come to blows. Well, not come to blows in terms of crashing into each other, but start to battle.
And here's the point, Ron, of the difference in pace of Sanchez to Vieira. No slipstream. Last time out for Sanchez, a 1:40.4. No slipstream for Lucas Vieira, a 1:39.5. 9/10 of a second quicker. That's the difference in pace. Vieira has the pace around this Watkins Glen circuit. Sanchez doesn't. Not without the slipstream, not without that tow from the car in front. Zuccarelli looks under pressure from Salvatore a bit further back in the background as well. That was coming up towards turn 9. Looked like they was having a little battle, but no, Zuccarelli's managed to hang on to that one for the time being. Salvatore having a good race here. He's up a few spots as well, but like we say, Sanchez without that slipstream doesn't seem to match the pace of Vieira without his. We see Vieira 1:39.5 as Sanchez comes across the line. He's only gone and done a 1:40.4 again. So again, another 9/10 loss. Both drivers without a slipstream.
It's just the tiniest little margins that separate these drivers lap in and lap out, week in and week out, and that's what's going to decide this fight. But Benlid is closing. He is going to slowly reel in the Peruvian driver of Franco Sanchez right up in front of him. Will he go for the move around the outside? Will he back Avid? I think he may have backed Avid there, lifted out of the gas. He didn't want to go for the move down the inside into the inner loop. I can't really blame the guy because only around the outside is basically the only way to go going into the inner loop there. So Benlid actually applying a little bit of restraint and not going for the move when he really could have. We'll see maybe Hunter Reeve going for a move here. This is Ojan right in front of him. We'll see those two maybe battle here in the not too distant future. They didn't go side by side. Heading into the inner loop this time by, however, we still got tense battles all throughout this field. This one outside the top 10. We've got battles all throughout this field, whether it be for the final podium position or whether it be outside the top 10. Always great to see here from these radicals. And I'll tell you, these races blow by quick. We're already past the distance of that sprint race, so it just shows you these races actually going by a little bit quicker than expected. These drivers pushing it quite a lot more than we were expected as well.
Yeah, it does, and like we say, 16 and a half minutes into this 45-minute race. It's great to see Reeve at the moment on the back of P12. What's the pronunciation of the P12 again? I think you've got it wrong twice, so I'm not going to attempt
Ohayon, I think.
Ohayon.
I think Ohayon.
Right.
Well, I'm winging it too.
Yeah, we'll go with that one. So Reeve at the minute on the back of Ohayon, and again the slipstream so far is going to play dividend to him coming down the straight. But what we're seeing now is we're 2 minutes past that 15-minute mark of race 1. What was the tyre life like in that first race? What's the tyre life going to be like now? Obviously they heated up a lot more, and they've still got half an hour to go. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Krasic here with a 1:42 just saw pop up on screen. So that's a very slow lap time there for Krasic. Maybe a problem or two on the last lap. He has dropped off the back of Hidi a little bit, but once again, the two leaders lapping in the 1:39s, and then it's 1:40s for the rest of the field all the way down to the leaders in a class on their own. And here is Ohayon, who was trying to look Reeve was trying to look for a move on Ohayon. Here is Krasic, who don't see much damage to that car, but a 1:42 last time out. Something went wrong that last lap.
Honestly, I think at this stage of the race, oh, you can see a little bit of scraping on the side there. That's a left-hand side of that Radical SR10 of his. So I think maybe there's a little bit of contact with the barrier. I'm not sure where he might have been able to make that contact, though, because there's no real section of this racetrack where you're close to a barrier on the left-hand side there. So that's bizarre.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if he's possibly pushed it on the exit of the final corner and clipped the wall as he comes out the final corner. That's the only part I can think of for the left-hand side part of the car to take a bit of a scrape like that. So out the final corner on that final wall, and I said it earlier on the Racing Unleashed broadcast, that is one place where drivers, if they just get a little too greedy and carry too much speed through, that is going to be a place where he could clip. Let's take a look now, see how he does through this final corner. There's the wall I'm talking about. You get too greedy on the outside and you go through. Drivers, though, making their pit stop. Sanchez, first man in.
This is a very early pit stop here from Franco Sanchez. However, he is in that pit stop window, and he is not alone as well. I believe that's Brian Johnson farther up the road who's just exiting the pits right now. So Franco Sanchez, who was within striking distance, well, he was probably going to get passed in the not-too-distant future, but he actually comes in, is the first to bite the bullet when it comes to these pit stops. I saw him in the pits. I was like, oh no, did he crash? And it turns out no, just coming in for a very early stop here. Franco Sanchez is a driver from Peru. In the number 88 car, we'll see him exit the pits now. This is a treacherous pit exit, very similar to Daytona. You have the track falling away from you, you're going downhill, and you feel like you have absolutely no grip. In these Radical SR10s, these drivers aren't taking tires. However, in that small little time that they're down pit road and not putting any sort of stress on them, they will cool off quite a bit, and the Radical SR10s on cold tires are a real pain in the butt. So Franco Sanchez thankfully negotiates it well. I wouldn't be too shocked, though, if we see a driver actually hit the wall there on pit exit. And speaking of hitting the wall there, I think that had to have been what happened to this Bentley. We're looking at him going for a move here. I believe this was with who was that farther up the road?
That's
actually, no.
further up the road. I was just looking at his last lap time, a 1:46.5, and that explains it. He's dropped it all on his own at turn 9.
Ooh, I'm really surprised at this stage of the race. I was going to say a few laps ago that I think some of these drivers may start to take it a little bit easy. We're approaching the midsection now, 20 minutes in, 25 left to go, so I think we may see a small little calm before the storm before a lot of these drivers pull into the pits. So I think this may be the section where these drivers may take it a little bit easy. However, taking it easy is definitely not in the dictionary for any of these Radical drivers, so I think they may buck my theory, and I think we may see some very hard battling in these next 5 minutes.
Indeed, we might. So just before the round of pit stops, the thing for Bentley there as well, by the way, Rod, is not only was his tyres sort of overheating and getting a bit dirty in that dirty air of Sanchez, he's then just had that massive slide through turn 9. That is not going to help the tyres. A bit of a bald spot maybe on part of the tyre there. That is going to really affect the car's handling for the first couple of laps. Sid's doing it. What speed from Krasic here through the inner loop, nearly goes into the back of Howard. And I tell you what, he's done so well not to collect him and cause an incident there, but he had some monumental speed through the inner loop there. That was absolutely immense from Howard here. We could see the slingshot effect. Look at the slipstream take full effect up through the S's, the final part of the S's now, and then you get onto the straight and he pulls out to the side. They're side by side. Matthew Howard actually got past that of the orange Radical, and then he nearly ended up being collected by the orange Radical. That was close.
I think we may have seen a little bit of contact there with the inside tire, well, with the inside Armco barrier for Krasic. It looked very close as they went through the inner loop. I think Krasic just throwing absolute caution to the wind and going for a fantastic send there. You guys, a fantastic save coming out of turn number 9 there. Just got a little bit too lost there. I think he may have overheated those tires with those heroics coming through the inner loop on this lap. So I think he may have felt that as he went through turn number 9 on this lap. So I think while we're waiting for some drivers to come in, I think we may see O'Hayan come in. You can see, actually, no, running a little bit wide there. I think he overshot the pits there. Yeah. He went slow. I think he was trying to go for the move. I think he was trying to go for the early pit stop here, but I think he just overshot it and had to bail out of going into the pits. That's disastrous there for the Canadian.
And that's the worst thing about Watkins Glen as well. That's one thing we didn't mention with this pit stop race is you have to sort of tuck down to get into that before the yellow line comes in, before the final corner, to basically say you're entering pit lane. And what he's done there is he's overshot it, cannot come back across that yellow line and has to go around to do another lap. So Very tricky to get wrong here because as drivers are coming off the racing line towards the apex of the final corner, other drivers wanted to be in the pit lane to get down pit road. So very difficult to see, but for O'Hayan here, then he's got to go one more lap for longer than what he planned.
I think this may be a good time to talk about this too. So I mentioned in the sprint race how drivers were going to be suffering from strained nerves throughout it and drivers getting a little bit annoyed with each other. I'll read this message out here real quick. That was actually shared in the Radical Discord server. I won't say who it was from, however, I will say it was to Eric Hartman after that Shamazel that he was involved in at the very start of the race. They added him and said, "Open your eyes, you blind bat." So clearly in this race, even though we're only 3 rounds into the championship, already drivers getting a little bit annoyed with each other. So I think that may be a role here in this race. Some drivers not very happy with their competitors that may play a role here in this finish.
Yeah, and I think that is the frustration and the adrenaline running of some drivers. I myself personally know that I can get very irate behind the steering wheel of a car, especially when it comes to some league championship racing. And O'Hayan there nearly outbrakes himself again going into the final corner, entering pit road. So I get the frustration of drivers, passionate drivers, early on in the championship, want as many points as they can get, feel a bit hard done to by other drivers. Probably best to leave comments off of platforms and let race control and stewards decide the decisions and the outcome to penalties. But yeah, I fully understand frustration and showing frustration. It shows how passionate the drivers are about wanting to win a championship.
I feel like I've definitely seen worse said in the in-race chat in iRacing. However, I don't think it's anything that I could recite here on Apex Racing TV without my job being at risk. So I think we'll just leave it off on that. I have definitely seen some very upset drivers. That was a creative insult, I must say. But I think before we talk about the structure of insults, we'll talk about the structure of the strategy right now. We're seeing Brian Johnson come in. He's been in and out of the pits throughout a vast majority of this race. I was going to comment the fact that he was running inside the top 20. He's still running inside the top 20, currently P20 as things stand at the moment. Only 21 cars still out there on the circuit. David Unger is currently P16. He's now exiting the pits. That was a very slow stop from him. 1 minute and 24.7 seconds stopped there in the box for the Australian driver. So I think maybe he accidentally took some tires, which is something we've seen so far this season. We have seen some drivers make the mistake and accidentally take tires. Hopefully none of these drivers take tires, because that would be disastrous for their chance of finishing on the podium. Zuccarelli, Salvatore, and Benlid, along with Hindi, are pulling into the pits, and now Howard is going to blow their doors off going down that start straightaway. He is going to overtake all of them as they slowly trundle down pit road, finally pulling into their boxes. Hopefully for their sakes they don't overshoot it. I think all of them got in well. We'll see how long they stay stopped in the box. Salvatore was the first one to get in. Hindi was the last. We'll see who's the first one to get off the box. Salvatore there after 12.9 seconds. He's out and away. Sanchez 12.7, and you can see Harris at 12.6 and Zuccarelli at 14.2. So that is a very slow stop there for the Canadian. I believe the second driver of that pack to actually get into his pit box is the last to leave. That is going to sting.
It's going to sting, but you say about not changing tyres. If a driver has changed tyres, there's still 20 minutes left in this race. Not necessarily going to be the worst thing in the world. Yes, you're going to lose a lot of time in the pit lane, but if you can get out in some clear air and pump in some great lap times, it may be beneficial later in the race. But Zuccarelli down to P8. Obviously other drivers have not yet pitted, and this is something where we're going to see drivers coming thick and fast. But for Sanchez, he's out in P6. Harris is P7. Sanchez, the first of the lead cars to pit, if I remember rightly, from P3. So keep an eye on his progress. He's currently 12 seconds behind that of Reeve, but he's some 22 seconds behind that of Howard in P3. So it's going to be interesting, since it's a bit longer than 22 seconds in and out with the stop in between.
I gotta see how he's going to shake out in this fight. That'll be interesting if the undercut can work. I will share my experience with a completely different series of Weekend Warriors earlier today here on Apex Racing TV, where strategy was the name of the game in both the Spec Racer Fords and the Formula Fords, where drivers were going for some undercuts and it simply didn't work, while other drivers tried to go for the undercut and it worked absolutely perfect for them. One thing that decides whether or not an undercut goes well or goes poorly is lap traffic, just traffic period. If you get caught out by some slower cars, you're going to be in for a world of hurt if you try to go for that undercut. I think Sanchez hasn't really been caught out by traffic. I think he's had a fairly clean road, and all the drivers he's encountered have probably come into the pits. So I think Sanchez is actually helping himself quite nicely, has been in clean air through a vast majority of this. Now he's still in clean air, about 11-second gap between himself and Reeve, currently P5 and P6. So Sanchez still in a little bit of clean air as things stand, about 27, now 28 minutes into this 45-minute race.
And look at Vieira here. He's pulled a 3.5-second gap over that of Odo. So did Odo go too early, too soon, and just push his car, push his tyres to a limit where they were then screaming at him to cool them down, and he didn't let off at all. Vieira comes into the pit lane now, and a few other drivers also in. That is McDougall, and Odo follows Vieira in, but Vieira's built such a good gap, just like in race 1. The pace has been there for Vieira, and he's absolutely smashing this so far.
And we'll see how long he is stopped in the box. If he takes tires, that's going to be a big shakeup. We'll just have to wait and see how this pit stop goes. For the driver that started the sprint race from the pole, took the checkered flag there, started this race from the pole, he's been leading pretty much from lights to flag, and we'll see how long he stopped in the box. We'll see how long Odo is stopped in the box. One of them may have to take a little bit less fuel. I will say Odo, being in the draft for as long as he may take a little bit less fuel. He did take a little bit less fuel, only 11.5 seconds stationary in the box compared to Vieira's 12.9, but still it is Vieira exiting with the lead. A little bit slower there in the pits, however, he had a pretty decent gap to work with, so he just used a little bit of that. So we'll see if Odo can get involved in that fight. Sanchez now slotting into P2, actually my apologies, slotting into P3 after everything is said and done. We got some more drivers coming in. That's Reeve and Krasik pitting towards the top of the AM category. We haven't really touched on the AMs. It's been a hot fight there as well. Reeve and Krasik have traded blows in that category. Currently it's Reeve leading in the AMs. Krasik was leading for quite some time, and then Ohayon there in P number 12. So we've got AMs running 3 abreast here, so I gotta imagine that that's going to be a nice fight as well for the top of that class.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice fight as well. Krasic now will try and get on the back of Reeve and see what he can do. Ohayon isn't going to be a million miles away. You just see on that track map there, he's coming up through the middle part of the S's, so he's having a good race. Just to go back to the Vieira-Odo pit stop that he was mentioning there, yes, Vieira pitted for longer, but the bonus of that is his tyres would have cooled down. He's probably barely used any tyres, not being in that slipstream, not being in that dirty air. We're seeing Odo again, straight back onto the back of Vieira, but with Vieira using less of his tyres probably cooled down a little bit, just give them a bit of a breather, and it's Odo's tyres that are going to once again take an absolute battering. But for Reeve and Krasic, like you say, the fight it for the lead of AMS, it's going to be absolutely fantastic with 15 minutes left to go on the clock here. Reeve, Krasic and Ohayon only 7 seconds back. Do not discount him from this race.
There is so much that we need to keep in mind between now and the checkered flag. The pit stops are out of the way. We don't have to worry about that, but we do have to worry about whether Odo took a little bit less fuel, just trying to wager a bet that he could get past Vieira with the pit stops. We'll see how some of these drivers shake out, how some of these battles shake out, whether they pit for a little bit less fuel, whether they're on the safe side. We'll just have to wait and see how things shake up between now and the checkered flag. This is going to be a fantastic fight, though. We've got lap traffic involved between Odo and Vieira. Vieira has been the dominant man so far tonight, won that sprint race, and has been leading pretty much from lights to flag so far here. In the future, we'll have to see if he can hold off the challenge from Odo, who's driving like a bat out of hell. He is a man on a mission, quite upset with how things went last time out in Sebring, and he is looking for some kind of redemption. Those 2 checkered flags he felt were his, and he is now going to try and grab one of those as redemption. We'll just have to wait and see if Odo can find a way to get past the Brazilian. These 2 are going to fight it quite hard. They have a massive gap between themselves and Franco Sanchez, currently running in P3, so I think they may throw caution to the wind and just go for an all-out brawl in the final stages of this race.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I tell you what, Odo, a man after my own heart there, flashing of the lights to try and distract Vieira into the braking zones. That is absolutely fantastic tactics to see. Don't mind a car that flashes his lights on his championship rival. Get that driver thinking about what he's doing. See if he'll start watching his mirrors, because the minute he starts watching his mirrors is the minute he starts missing his braking zones. It is a good strategy from Odo. Don't overly do it. You don't want to go over the top with it, but yeah, going to be interesting to see. Brendan Wright comes out the pit lane then. He's down in 15th place at the minute. Reeve is in the pit lane. So what has happened to him? Because he was in a fight, if I do believe, with Krasic and Ohayon.
You brought up a very good point there. Mind games are a massive role here in this fight. Hunter Reeve has come in, so I think he may have just been a little bit off sequence, off strategy there. So now the fight at the top of the AM category is going to be between Krasik and Ohio. And I think at this stage of the race, Krasik has a pretty big gap between himself and Ohio right now. So we'll see if those two can maybe close up a little bit between now and the checkered flag. I'll try and roughly time it out here as they cross the start-finish line. We'll see when those lap times pop up. I think they have a pretty decent gap between the two of them. I am not 100% sure on that. Basically a microscopic gap between Vieira and Odo has actually decreased a little bit now. So you can see these drivers last lap, Krasik was at a 155.3. However, I believe that was his out lap, so that's the reason why he was quite slow. But I think he has a nice gap to work with at the front of that AM category, and he's running in a pretty solid P10 for an AM driver. That is quite impressive right now, so we'll see if he can hold on to that spot. You can see that damage has been replaced. These drivers do have a faster pair to contend with here in this series. That's the reason why many of the drivers involved in that insane lap 1 crash have rejoined this race, and that's the reason why Krasik's Radical SR10 looks just like new. Brian Johnson now back into the pits for, I think, the 4th or 5th time so far here tonight. He is looking to try and learn about the Radical SR10s, learn how to drive, and I gotta give the man credit for showing up here and having the guts to drive. Certainly I can judge. I probably would have been much better, but Brian Johnson, currently running farther in the back, pulls into the pits yet again. Right now, none of these drivers are looking to pull into the pits again. Vieira and Odo still at the front, still commanding this race, and Odo last time by was a few tenths of a second quicker, so I think Odo may be slowly reeling him in. I think what he may be doing here is saving up his stuff and trying to challenge Vieira in the final 5 minutes, because I think if you get by him now and burn up your stuff, you're going to be a sitting duck towards the end of this. What do you think, Matthew?
Well, this is where I said it's like a game of chess. When do you blink? When do you make that move to get past your rival in this race? Because the minute Odo gets past Vieira, Vieira's going to have that slipstream, that powerful slipstream, especially coming up through the S's. So Odo just possibly biding his time. The problem is he's got to sort of make sure he keeps his tyres in check. I think he lost a bit of tyre performance in that first stint because he all of a sudden dropped back to within 3 seconds of Vieira. Attack him now, but if you cannot, you've got to make sure you keep that pressure on. 10 minutes to go in this race. You've got to now treat it like the sprint with tyres that are older and warmer and more used. You've got to either get the move done early and defend like your life depends on it, or you keep the car there and wait till the very end. The minute he gets within a 1.5 seconds distance, it is game over.
We can see Charles Krasik now in the pits. He's exiting the pits now running in P14 and P3 in the AM category. It's given the lead in the AM, so Ohio with about 10 minutes left to go here. So I'm not sure why in the world John Kasich pulled in. Was he one of the drivers involved in the early drama? I don't think he was. So the fact that Krasik is pitting for a second time, that is, I'm kind of thrown for a loop there. I'm not too sure why he came in. Yeah, maybe under fuel. That's strange there, regardless from the American, and heartbreaking for sure.
Yeah, definitely heartbreaking, especially when you can get a class win. You always want to take the class wins. He's still on the class podium, and he's only a couple of seconds off the back of Jacqueline there. There he is, Jacqueline, just a little further forward. But Ohio pretty much gifted the race win here, and I tell you what, you look at the gaps on this circuit, the top two have absolutely left everybody in their dust. It has been absolutely fantastic. Still 0.6 of a second separating Vieira and Otto. Zuccarelli has just got past Harris on the timing screens to move up into P4. But you're right, for Ohio possibly been gifted this race winning out.
When you can see the fight continuing here at the front of the field, Lucas Vieira is still leading. He may catch up to some lap traffic here soon. That's going to throw a big wrench in the works between now and the end of it. Diego Zuccarelli has also clawed through the field quite nicely, now running in P4. I believe he got moved on here on Harris. We're going to take a look at a replay to see exactly what he did going on to the back straightaway here, side by side there. Actually, as they were going through turn number 4, it just showed you the fantastic run that Diego Zuccarelli had. Got the move done, I think, well before they even thought about getting on the brakes and turning in for the inner loop there. So Diego Zuccarelli with a fairly textbook stuff there to move into P4. Nice result there from the Canadian.
Yeah, great result there, and it's just a typical overtake here at Watkins Glen with such cars with slipstream here, using up the S's, set them up into the inner loop, and you can get them moves done. David Unger is P11 at the moment. Has he just made the move to get into P11? No, he's got Hiddy. So Not quite sure if he has or not. Can't remember if he was 11th or 12th. Either way, he's got Hiddy behind him, but the Australian driver currently running in 11th place. He's a bit of a way behind Ohio, the AM driver so far. Zuccarelli now into the 139s, and this is Odo attacking the back of Vieira, and we said he maybe needs to get this move done earlier, sooner rather than later, to save his tyres. He's done it now. It's a great move through the inner loop, but now, with a fair few minutes left on the clock, he's now got the chance to Vieira. We now get to see Vieira be the aggressor in this second race.
Well done. That was some nice stuff there from Odo to take the lead. He's the first driver that we've seen lead a race so far tonight besides Lucas Vieira. Vieira has put a clinic on the field so far tonight, but right now, with about not a whole lot of time left to go, only 7 minutes left on the clock, Ryan Odo is in command of things. You can see him weaving, going down the back straightaway there, the small little straight in the boot section between toe and heel, just desperately trying to break that slipstream. Ryan Odo feels like a sitting duck. You can see how much Vieira is sniffing around the back of Odo's car as they go around turn number 9. So I think Vieira at this stage is trying to find any sort of way to retake the lead, but I think Odo right now, I think for his sake, he would be best off if he wasn't in the lead on that white flag, because I think if you're leading, coming to take that white flag, you're going to be a sitting duck. So I think maybe we'll see Ryan Odo do a little bit of gamesmanship here and maybe give up the lead of the race. However, he is a very hard racer. I don't think he's going to take it easy between now and the checkered flag with a win on the cards, but I think that may be a good strategy from my perspective. Again, I'm not a driver, I'm just a broadcaster. I run my mouth for a living instead of drive behind a wheel, but I think if you're going into that that final lap of the race, if you're going to see these drivers go side by side like they are now, Vieira trying to go for a move around the outside. Odo did it last time, and now Vieira does it this time there. But actually, no, Vieira goes all kinds of sideways midway through the inner loop, and it's allowing Ryan Odo to try and go for a move around the outside, going around turn number 5. It's going to be a battle of the last late breakers when they go down the chute and into turn number 6. Who's going to prevail in this fight? Ryan Odo clears him mid-corner. Will he clear him on corner exit? Yes, he does. But Ryan Odo at this stage desperately holding on to the lead. Lucas Vieira desperately trying to find a way to get past his American adversary. And we're going to take a look at a replay of this drama going through the inner loop this time by.
There was indeed, and Lucas Vieira got the run. He got that great slipstream through, and as he pulled to that left-hand side of the circuit, he had the outside line for the first part. It was a great move that he'd already got done, but you just see him bounce off the first curve that unsettled the car, got it a little sideways. It was well saved, but that allowed Odo to come right back at him. The thing for Vieira now is he's not really had to attack anybody all race. Now he's got to do it, but somehow he's got back in front.
We may have to take a look at a replay to see how he did that. That's a section where you don't see a whole lot of overtaking opportunities, so we may have to take a look at what in the heck happened between these two. You can see the desperate weaving from the both of them going down the start-finish straightaway. It shows you how powerful the slipstream is. These drivers know that, they realize it, and they're using it to their effect and using it to their benefit. We'll see. Maybe they'll go side by side yet again going down this back straightaway. Odo actually a little bit farther back, about 0.3 of a second, 0.4 of a second as they went through the S's, but now that gap is diminishing. Now less than 1/4 of a second, about less than a tenth now. Will he pull out to try and go for the move? Going around the outside into the inner loop. They're going to be side by side heading into the corner. Neither of them back out. We're entering the dying stages of this race, and none of these drivers are going to take it easy, but Odo goes for the move to reclaim the lead of this race. And we're going to take a look at a replay. I think lap traffic was involved and got these two side by side as they went into the heel this past lap, and I think Lucas Vieira just had the inside line coming through the very tricky turn number 9, and I think that's how he retook the lead very briefly here in the dying stages of this race.
And that's very clever from Odo there. He didn't need to defend that too hard. He didn't need to fight that too hard. Turn 9, very tricky. Just make sure you get through the corner and get as good an exit as you can get. Now coming down the boot once again towards the heel. Odo is going to try and defend from Vieira as they nearly clatter each other into the back. Vieira manages to keep it out the back of Odo's radical there then. And now they go once again up towards turn 9. Odo doing everything he can to stay ahead of Vieira. This is a great little fight for these final couple of places. Notice that Krasic has gone into P12, so he's moved up into second place in the M category, but Vieira at the moment doing everything in his power to try and get back in front of Odo. There is just under 3 minutes left on the clock, so about 2 laps remaining in this race. And yeah, Odo at the moment doing the good start, the good stuff that he needs to do. He got the move done when he needed it, and now he's defending as well as he possibly can. through the 90 they come, and it's all about this run now up through the S's towards the inner loop. This is going to be mighty for Vieira. Let's just see on board. Look at the closing speed as he comes through the first pot, flicks it back to the left. He's going to flick it right now. He's already gone to the left-hand side to commit. That slipstream already in effect. He's going to be well ahead by the time they hit the braking zone of the inner loop. But Odo trying to fight back, trying to keep a nose just in front, can't do so. And it's back advantage Lucas Vieira.
I have a feeling that this fight is going to be far from straightforward between now and the checkered flag coming in about a lap and a half's time. I gotta imagine these two, with how hard they've been racing so far tonight, they may come to blows, they may come to tears going through the inner loop on that final lap, which is coming up in the not too distant future, I believe. Will they be taking the white flag? I believe they will be taking the white flag this time by, so after a few more corners on this lap, it will be one lap to go for all of these drivers. That's Ohio, who's right now leading and on his way to a dominant win in the AM category, currently running P9 overall. This is a fantastic race there for the Canadian, the driver, the number 44 car. But I think my attention is on the attention at the, my attention is at the fight at the very front end of the field. Vieira still leading. He's going to be taking the white flag in the lead of this race, and I don't have a good feeling about him. I said earlier on in this race that anyone leading on the white flag is going to be a sitting duck, and with a driver like Odo, who has the fastest lap of the race, is always a very aggressive racer, he is going to try and push the limits. He is going to go for a balls to the wall, ballsy move on this last lap, and I gotta imagine these two are going to be in a completely different position when they come to start when they come to take the checkered flag. Vieira actually set the fastest lap of the race last time by, and Odo was quite slow, about a second slower than Vieira last time by, so I think Ryan Odo may have burnt up his tires and may not be close enough to go for a move into the inner loop this time by. You can see Vieira going for the defensive line, trying to break that slipstream, weaving, bobbing and weaving, going down the back straightaway. Ryan Odo just not close enough. He is going to have to put in an almighty second half of this lap. He went for the send coming through the inner loop. That was committed there from Ryan Odo on the last lap of this race. He is going to have a fantastic run coming through the boot if he wants to sniff a hope of winning this race. Ryan Odo closing that gap slowly but surely. The real question is, does he have enough time to close within striking distance of Vieira? He's going to have to hope and pray for a good run coming around toe, and hope and pray for Vieira to make some kind of mistake, which he hasn't. Those two separated by barely any air, but it's still just enough for Vieira to hold off any sort of challenge. Will Odo go for a send in the final few corners, going through the heel the final time? And Lucas Vieira, it wasn't looking good for him. However, Odo, with a very unfortunate turn of pace in the dying stages of this race, just wasn't close enough to fight Vieira as he went into the inner loop for one last time. And now Vieira entering the second to last corner. He has two more corners left to go, and as long as he doesn't clang it into the barrier, it's going to be Lucas Vieira going for the double around turn number 11, the final turn, for one last time and book it. Lucas Vieira is going to go with the double and take both victories in the sprint and the feature race here in the Radical Americas Championship round 3 here at Watkins Glen. It was a very hard fought, it must be said, from Ryan Odo in P2, but just so close there at the finish of that 45-minute race. Just wasn't close enough to challenge his Brazilian adversary at the end of that. And then Franco Sanchez rounds out your podium in third, and now we're looking at who's actually moved into 8, Ohayan. I'm killing the pronunciation once again. The driver, the number 44 car, the Canadian, has been at the front of the AM category for the past 10 minutes. It's been a very up and down fight in the AMs, it must be said. We were thinking that Krasik was going to have his name all over that trophy, but sadly for him, he had to come into the pits not very long ago, and it's allowed the Canadian Ohioan to move his way into the front of that category, and he's cut his way up to P8 overall, which would be a fantastic result for the driver in the AM category. Coming around the last turn for one final time, he has a clean track in front of him, no one behind him, and Cedric Ohioan is going to take the checkered flag, the top of the AM drivers there. A very spread out field, it must be said, after 45 minutes of racing action, but I think even though that wasn't as dramatic as we may have been expecting, as dramatic as that very intense sprint race was, I still think that was pretty interesting for a 45-minute race. What do you think, Matthew?
Absolutely fantastic, and the way that the pro category ended at the very end there with Odo and Vieira, what a race that was. Vieira didn't blink. He made sure that he was going to say checkmate at the end of this race, and he left Odo on that final lap. He timed it to perfection. He did exactly what he needed to do. I think Odo ran out of tyres. I think the two times that Odo had tried to sort of make it past or get that move through. I think Odo really kind of messed himself there. I think that was the end of his day.
Yeah, again, it just shows you how important the tires are here in these radicals. We've mentioned it quite a lot on the official broadcast in my time doing those, how important tires are, and just sadly it gets involved. I can't even say sadly, it's just a function of this racing. However, the tires play another role here in this fight. We're taking a look at a replay. This was Vieira and Odo and their massive scrap towards the end of this race. I have to say, I think that was the most intense fight that we've had for the lead so far this season. Again, we're only 3 races in, so there's still a lot left to be decided here from the Radical Americas Championship. However, that was awesome to see both Ryan Odo and Lucas Vieira giving it all they had, 2 of Radical's best, pushing it to the absolute limit in the dying stages of this race, and I think that was pretty cool to watch. And I think while we're taking a look at some more angles of this battling here, I think we'll touch on the results first and go through the finishing order from a very, very interesting, very dramatic second race here from the Radical Americas Championship at Watkins Glen. An intense fight at the front. I'm a little bit disappointed that we didn't see those two as close as I would have hoped that they were when they started that last lap. However, you gotta give credit to the both of them for putting on a fantastic show. And we'll take a look at the results here. I think we may be on the second page because I see P7 to P24, unless I'm having a small little glitch on my end. We'll try and get that glitched here, get that fixed here. And there we go. It's Lucas Vieira taking the checkered flag. Only 7/10 of a second separating himself and Ryan Odo there in P1 and P2, with Franco Sanchez running at your podium in third. I believe they finished in the same order that they did in the sprint race earlier, so some things change, others stay the same here in the Radical Americas Championship. Diego Zuccarelli, the series admin, finishes this race in fourth. That's a fantastic result from him, who's been hit by falling anvils a lot of time throughout the season. It was nice to see him have a clean race meeting here at Watkins Glen. That's Timothy Salvador there, rounding at your top 5. John Benlid in 6th, Matthew Howard in 7th. Then it's Cedric O'Hyan taking the checkered flag, the top of the AM drivers, P8 overall. David Unger in 9th, and then Chris Hindy rounding at your top 10.
Absolutely fantastic battles throughout there, and I think it was Vieira, Sanchez, and Odo in the sprint race, and this time it was Vieira, Odo, Sanchez. Zuccarelli, good night for himself in the racing today. It's been a great bit of radical racing here at Watkins Glen. Race 4 of the season comes at the back end of April, I believe the 28th of April. In this Radical Series, and what a championship this is going to turn out to be. It's a shame that the championship leader going into tonight wasn't able to fight at the front as we've seen all season, but I tell you what, he is going to need to claw some points back next time out. But what a battle. If Odo and Vieira are going at this all season, this is going to be a fantastic battle.
Well, Ryan Odo is a very hard racer, and speaking of hard racers, I think we have the opportunity to talk to a few right now. I will bring in your race winner from both of the races here tonight, and that is Lucas Vieira, dragging him by the collar here into the commentary booth. Lucas, thank you for joining us here in the commentary booth. That was a hard-fought race from both you and Ryan Odo. Talk us through this race meeting here at Watkins Glen.
Hey guys, thanks for the interview, for the broadcast. Yeah, it was a really tough race. I think I sweat a lot on the last 8 laps. I think it was really tough to keep Ryan behind. I have a really bad pit entry. I have a bank marker where I tried to go into pit entry. I lost all the gap that I built during the race. So the last 8 laps was just fighting for keeping P1. But in the end, I managed to do. But Ryan is a really clean driver, so I can fight really close with him. It was really fun to drive.
Well, talking about that fight between yourself and Ryan Odo, it was cutthroat but respectful as well. Just give us your perspective on that intense fight between you two.
Oh yeah, it was really clean. I think that's the point of all the whole league here, because it doesn't matter how close you go, everyone's gonna be fair. They don't do like a bump drafting or something, like you can end both races. So it's good. You can rely on the people who are going to be fair, so no worries about the end of the race by fighting through the race.
I think congratulations on taking both of the checkered flags here this evening. Are you going to try and run that momentum when we show up to, you'll basically have hometown advantage in a few weeks' time when the series rocks up to Interlagos. What are your thoughts heading there?
Oh yeah, I had home advantage. I have driven several hours in the iRacing. I have some experience in real life too, because I used to live nearby to Interlagos, and I love this track. I hope I hope I can get a win. I don't know. It's really competitive on these fields, so let's try to do my best to have at least a podium at home.
That'd be pretty cool to see. I think a home podium for you would be a very nice result to celebrate, even though you took the checkered flag in both races here tonight. Lucas Vieira, thank you for joining us here in the commentary booth. Is there anyone that you'd like to give thanks to or shout out?
Oh, sure. For my wife that let me to race this evening. To the whole people who was watching, the Radical crew, especially for you guys to being so late on the time zone to being doing this broadcast. And thank you, everyone.
Well, it's not too late for me. I think my colleague Matthew is, I think it's probably about midnight or maybe about 1 a.m. for him in the UK, so he's the one that should probably deserve the thanks for staying up late and being a trooper, doing a lot of the broadcasts here on Apex Racing. 3 a.m., okay.
10 to 3 in the morning, and we've been up since 6 a.m. watching the Formula 1.
May God have mercy on your soul, Matthew. You are an absolute trooper. And as were you, Lucas, put on a fantastic show throughout this race, and we hope to see you next time out at Interlagos.
Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
That was Lucas Vieira, your driver, the driver that took the checkered flag in both races here tonight. And Matthew, would you like to have a chat with any other drivers we have left?
Yeah, sure thing. Let's bring in Odo. We'll speak with Odo if we can. Ryan, congratulations, a second place and a third place tonight. That was a fantastic second race battle with Vieira there. Just talk us through it from your perspective.
Yeah, so what happened on the sprint race was I accidentally missed the first rumble strip. Didn't hit it as much as I would have wanted to, and that spun me, and I lost a lot of time through there. And then after that, I started climbing my way back up through the field. There was the drivers that I was battling with. They showed great talent, and they were absolutely amazing. They kept it clean, and I remember enjoying it, battling with all of them. And then the second race, I got lucky on the start to stay with the top two, and then I had the draft, able to get by Franco. And then after that, it was just a matter of staying with Vieira, but I lost him. But I'd already saved enough fuel that I could catch back up to him through the pit stops, and that's why I was able to bring down 3 seconds. And then after those 3 seconds, I was able to pull up to him, and then he got unlucky with traffic. And that's what was the final little nail in the coffin for him being able to stay in front of me. And we had a great battle at the end, but the dirty air on the last lap is what got me, as well as the second to last lap, and that's why I lost.
Was the tyres an issue for you tonight, Ryan? Because we saw that you was obviously really in that dirty air, and then tyres would have been taking an absolute battering from the dirty air of Vieira. Was tyres an issue towards the end of that race on that last lap?
I think for the last lap, maybe a little bit for me, but I could tell it was more for Vieira, because when at the start of the race, I was trying to save my tires and save my fuel, so I had more tires and fuel, or more tires and better fuel than Vieira, and that's why I was able to stay up. But I could tell Vieira, he's an absolute masterclass for handling his car. He was able to keep it together with even more degraded tires, and he was much faster than I was.
P3 in the championship going into tonight, your second place and a third place is great results for yourself, but great results for your championship. Obviously, a championship isn't won by winning the odd race here and there. It's about being consistent throughout. Is that the kind of consistency you need to put a good championship fight together?
Yes, but I can't keep on losing to Vieira, because otherwise he'll start catching me in the championship and he'll pass me.
And we head to Interlagos on the 28th of April. Fantastic circuit, famous circuit. Are you looking forward to that one? And preparations, I'm sure, will be getting underway as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'll definitely be starting, because I actually have never raced on that track. I have seen people race on it before, so I have an idea of what all the corners are. So I'll be definitely spending a little more time on that track.
Oh, well, Ryan, congratulations on the P2 and P3 tonight, and enjoy Interlagos. What a beautiful circuit it is.
Thank you.
That was Ryan Odo, the driver that finished P2 and P3 in both of the races we had here tonight. And I think after hearing his voice, he may be not of legal drinking age, which made my quote a few weeks ago saying that he needed to console himself with some beers after the race that he had. I think I may have to retract that statement, but we have one more driver waiting in the interview waiting area, and that's Franco Sanchez. We'll drag him in here by the collar into the commentary booth. Franco Sanchez, thank you for joining us here in the commentary booth. A very dramatic race meeting from you as well, finishing on the podium in both of these races. Talk us through this race meeting here at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, thank you for the interview. The race was very difficult, muy difícil la carrera. Amazing drivers. In the middle of the race, I tried to save tires because está muy caliente la pista y I tried to solamente llegar a la meta. But una carrera amazing. The drivers are an aliens. All the drivers, the level is very high, and I'm very happy for joining this amazing championship.
Well, this championship is absolutely amazing. It's great to see you be a part of it, along with the official Radical broadcast here every single Friday. And now we're heading into Interlagos next time, Matt. So how do you fancy your chances there in a few weeks' time?
Ya, cada viernes yo corro mucho en iRacing. Yo, por ejemplo, I'm a real driver. I race in real life, and I race this championship for the level of the drivers, ¿no? It's so high. Todos los viernes yo corro las carreras que hay en Apex TV Racing y estoy muy feliz de estar aquí con ustedes. I'm very happy to hear with you.
Franco Sanchez, thank you for joining us here in the commentary booth. Is there anyone that you'd like to give a thanks to or shout out?
Sorry? I don't understand.
Is there anyone you'd like to give a thanks to, or is there anyone you want to say thank you to, or is there anyone you want to shout out?
I want to thank you to all my sponsors, real and virtual. I have two sponsors, real racing and virtual racing. Thank you to you for this amazing championship, and see you next races. Amazing, congratulations. Muy limpio, muy organizado, gracias a todos ustedes. Un nivel de pilotos alucinante. Estoy feliz de estar aquí con ustedes y estoy de verdad que contento de correr contra los mejores pilotos del mundo. I'm happy with race with the best drivers in the world in SimRacing Radical.
Well, thank you for joining us here, Franco Sanchez, and excited to see you on track next time out at Interlagos. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you to you. Thank you all. Thank you.
All right, take it easy, man. Have a good one. That was Franco Sanchez, who I think just gave me my first bilingual interview I've had in my entire life. I will be honest. I took Spanish 1 honors back in high school. However, I was only there for 5 weeks until I transferred to a different school. So any Spanish viewers watching this stream here on Apex Racing TV, hopefully didn't say any expletives there, because we can fact check for that. We have a Brit, a Canadian, and an American here. I think all of us combined probably speak about 7 words of Spanish, but Franco Sanchez taking time out of his night to have a quick little chat with us. And now, Matthew, it's technically Monday morning for you, so I think I'll wrap things up for your sake and just ask you one last question. We asked the drivers that we got a chance to have a chat with how they thought of the racing. How did you think of your first ever Radical races here on Apex?
Absolutely fantastic. Really enjoyed tonight. Some really great action. Fantastic battles up and down the field. Great to see some of the AMs mix it with the pros as well. That was fascinating for me. And the battles at the front. This season could be a fantastic season between Vieira, Ryan, a fair few drivers. I think there's multiple drivers that can win races this year. I don't think there's going to be one runaway driver that will win.
This is going to be a fantastic season ahead of us. We're 3 rounds in. We still have quite a long ways left to go. 12 rounds in total between now and the middle of October. And as Matthew pointed out earlier on in this broadcast, the next time you're going to be seeing this series is in 3 weeks' time at Interlagos on the Grand Prix layout. That's going to be a pretty interesting race there at a track we've seen in the officials as well. And of course, Apex Racing TV has Radical action every single week with the officials, along with these broadcasts occasionally on Sundays. And along with the Radicals, we've got all sorts of racing action, including the Racing Unleashed series. Don't forget, I forgot about you, Matthew. They're with that series every Sunday here as well. We hope so you can tune into that one as well, along with some of the other amazing racing action that we have here on Apex Racing TV, day in and day out every single week of the year. But again, next time you'll see the series is in 3 weeks time at Interlagos, and we hope to see you all there. But as for this broadcast, I think that'll just about do it. So for myself, Ron Mullins, Matthew Duffin in the morning, probably sleep deprived to all heck, joining me in the commentary booth, and Josh Wilkie working on the cameras in the virtual production hall. I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you all again in a couple of weeks time.
Good night.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.